calculator. Lately I've been deciding to do a little programming in Python. I got the idea for this video from a course called 100 Days of Code from Complete Python Pro Bootcamp from Angela Yu, I believe you pronounce her name as. It's a course on Udemy. I highly recommend it. She also has a web course that's really good as well. Um, but for this example, or project rather, we're doing a tip calculator, and I'll just read the description for you real quick. We're going to build a tip calculator if the bill was $150, split between 5 people, with a 12% tip. Each person should pay 150. Excuse me. So here she shows the breakdown of the math. So it's $150 divided by 5 people times a tip of 1.12, which I'll explain a little bit later why that math is being used here. And then each person would pay $33.60. And like she says here, after formatting the results to the second decimal place, it's $33.60. And she has a demo example on her website. If you guys get the course, you're welcome to check that out. But of course, we're gonna set up a demo here as well. So let me go back to Visual Studio. So here, as you guys can see, all this is I created a file called tip-calculator_.py, and I just took these 4 lines of code from her video. Of course, you guys can go ahead and pause right here and feel free to type these 4 lines of code. I'll explain them a little bit while you guys might be typing. So this portion here is essentially just called user input. The first line of code, which is on line 3, this is a print statement where we are just going to print out welcome to the tip calculator. Then on line 4, it is going to store the input provided from the user into a variable called bill, which will be stored as a float, and the input question will be displayed for the user is going to be what was the total bill, and then it has a $sign on there as well. And then on line 5, you have the variable of tip, which is going to be an integer, and this is taking in the percentage tip that the user provides. In this case, it's going to be a 12% tip, like we saw from the example. And then on line 6, this is the variable that's going to store the number of people. In this case, it's going to be 5, which it'll convert the input, because as we know with Python, everything's entered as a string, so we have to convert it into an integer. So that number 5, which is currently a string, is going to be converted into an integer, which will be stored into the variable of people. So from here, now what we need to do is we need to start to incorporate the actual math behind the tip calculator. So if we think about it now, we have every tip, it's easier to divide it by 100. So first thing we want to do is create a variable to take in this value. And we know when we enter it right now, it's an integer. But we're going to want to divide it by 100 to put it back into that float state, or a decimal, as it's better known as. Okay, and then we want to add a 1.0. Now, I understand if some of you might be confused as to why we add a 1.0 here, but essentially what's happening here is we're taking into the account of the total bill. So it's like taking into account the bill plus the tip. So that's what's happening here on line 9. And then we want to calculate, as it was explained at the beginning, how much the bill would be per person. And here we want to use the variable bill per person. Of course, you can name these variables anything. I just tried to do something that was easy. And again, this estimated bill as it is right now is, or the bill as it is right now, it's a float, so we have to account for that. So we want to make sure we put a float, and then we put bill. So we know we want to do the bill, right, divided by the number of people. Which in this case we also want it to be a float. This will just make it easier for when it comes down to calculating the tip. So I want to add an extra line that she didn't necessarily cover in hers, but I did find that it was needed when it came to the real world situation, of course, which is actually being able to display the tip amount. So I just want to add a line for that. So again, you want to create another variable for this. But of course, the first thing you want to do, right, is you have to know the Okay, sorry, so what I want to do is I want to display the tip amount. So what we need to do is, of course, have this be in a float. So we're going to have the whole thing be in a float. And again, a float is a way that Python refers to as a decimal. So then you want the bill amount here, okay, which is again taken from the input for line 4. And then you will take the tip that was provided from the user in line 5, like we did on line 6, and divide that by 100. Let me make sure I got all my parentheses in there. I feel like I'm missing one. Nope, I don't have an error, so okay. So then from there, what we want to do is we want to show the total bill per person, including tip. Right, so this variable, I'm going to title this amount. And then this is just bill per person times tip 1. Okay. So now what we're going to do is format the output so that everything displays out nicely So the first thing we want to do is take in the tip from earlier. Again, you don't have to keep renaming these, but I like to do it because it's a little bit easier for me to see. And let's round this out to a 2 decimal places so it looks a little nicer. So again, this is going to display, or this formats, excuse me, rounds the tip to the second place. Decimal place. Okay, awesome. And so now what we'll do is we'll do the same thing for the bill amount. So we're going to do round, oops. Okay. So now all that's left to do is, like I mentioned earlier, just to make it look nicer, we're going to format our code so that it only shows the second decimal place. That's the good thing about Python, is it has a lot of preset packages. Last but not least, we're going to do 2 print statements with an F string. Again, if you guys want me to go into further detail of any of these Python terms, feel free to let me know. I don't have a problem doing that in a separate video. So it's an F string, the tip total is, and then we need to use the curly braces so that then we can throw in a variable. So like, these are the situations why I like to use different variables names, because then when it comes to printing them out, you know which one it was because it changed as it went along. So here we want to know how much each person should pay, including tip. And in this case, this is the final amount. Okay, so let's save. So everything looks okay to me. So again, just real quick, so everyone knows what we did. In lines 2 through 6, this takes in user input. It prints on the screen or to the terminal that it asks you for the total bill amount, and then asks for the tip, as well as for how many people. And then lines 6 through 9, or excuse me, 8 through 9, we are calculating the tip, so it's taking in a float, and it's taking the integer that was provided in line 5, and then it's converting it into a float and adding 1. It's calculating the number of people, or excuse me, it's dividing up the bill per person. So it takes in the bill, divides it by the number of people, and then you know how much each person is paying of the bill. And then here it calculates the total. So it takes in the amount per person times the tip for that amount of just the total plus the tip per person. And then this displays the tip total. So what I mean by tip total is like the separate amount in dollars instead of percent sign. So let's run this. So see, as you guys can see in the terminal that shows at the bottom, welcome to the tip calculator. We're going to say the total is $150. What percentage tip would you like to give? We're giving a 12%, and how many people are there is 5. So we did get an error here. It's saying float object has no abstract of to format. Might have forgot something. Let's see here. Da-da-da-da. Let's just remove it then. No, that's right too. Because he said formatting is 3360. Yep, and I got 3360 and the tip is that. Okay, well, I'm gonna end up combining these two. Or excuse me, times the tip, which is 1 times 12, which will give you 33.60. I hope you guys learned something from this video. If you guys learned anything or enjoyed yourself or just new to coding and interested in learning some new stuff, feel free to follow, subscribe, like any of my social medias. I post almost every day or as much as I can. Feel free to reach out if you guys need any tips on study material or anything like that. Don't hesitate to reach out. We're all a community. We're all here to help and all here to improve every day. So have a great day and talk to you guys next time. Bye. I can never find my mouse.